Hello and welcome to this session of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. We're very excited to be part of this big, great online event with our session Microsoft Teams for Education. We're going to ask the question, is it just an emergency plan right now, or is it really a chance at digital transformation? My name is Antje Lamartine. I'm Senior Customer Success Manager at If Blueprint in Munich, Germany.
And hello also from my side. My name is Thomy Gölles. I'm responsible for the team called Modern Workplace Solution at Solvian. I am based in Graz in Austria. To start or to set the mindset of this session on a base level, we are all facing total new times. Pictures that for 500 years were static and clear for everyone on the planet look like this today. So we have new rules to follow and a new normal. And I think everyone in this session has to apply to a certain degree to some new laws or to some new regulations in the workplace or in the general public. Just to give you an understanding where we're coming from. Of course, we are focusing on education, but we realized over the last 8, 9, 10 weeks or so that with this global pandemic going on, especially for teachers, educators, and students, everything changed, and we want to have a close look where chances are for a real digitalization of the whole education sector. The session is structured in 3 main parts and follow-up takeaways. We want to start with have a look at how schools and educators are managing the crisis at the moment. Looking at some opportunities we see, we can really make a big step forward by the use of Microsoft Teams in the education space. And then we want to make one step further. We want to talk about methods and best practices that we both experienced over the last, 5, 10, 15 years, on how to foster those efforts and to make sure that this energy that is put into the education sector right now to make everything like e-learning and distance learning possible also is prolonged over the next months and years, and not only a short burst in interest during the corona pandemic, but something that stays and improves the life of all of us for the future. So in terms of managing the crisis, Antje, our points in that area are?
Well, it says so nicely, don't panic. I mean, I think we all were trying not to panic, but especially teachers were really thrown into a situation that I think it's fair to say that they've never been in before. And at the very beginning, they were really met with a lot of challenges. And we turned them here into 4 buckets. The first one is about the structure. And what we really learned in working with schools over the last 6 to 8, 9 weeks is that school administrators and teachers are really used to structure. It's a very structured job that they have. Their comfort lies with the analog world where things are done by paper. They're handing out papers to the kids. The kids turn the paper back in. And the other thing is also that the processes really remain the same every year, right? I mean, a school year ends, a new class comes in the next year, but the teaching content and that the way the teachers go about teaching the content doesn't really change from year to year. In terms of the technology, the challenges that they've been facing with this corona crisis is that, well, obviously schools do have equipment, but the equipment wasn't necessarily put there with collaboration in mind. A lot of times they had poor Wi-Fi, and what I mean was lack of equipment. Once they did have equipment, one story that I've heard, which I thought was very interesting, that when Microsoft Teams was finally deployed on school computers and the teachers had a login account, they actually realized that the cameras and the sound, the microphone, was actually turned off by the district. So it was never necessary beforehand, and now all of a sudden there was a need. They did have the equipment, they had the account, but they couldn't really use it the way it's intended to be used. Well, then we are in Germany, at least I am, so we always have big question marks and a lot of questions around data privacy and security. So we're talking here GDPR. This is a very, very large challenge here in Germany because the districts did not necessarily get clear instructions on what they could and could not do. And also the different states in Germany have different guidelines in that respect. And technology wasn't really a focus beforehand, so there was a lack of strategies. There still is a lack of strategy, and if you don't have a strategy what technology you want to use and what type of functionality, of course there's no training available to the teacher. So the teachers now all of a sudden really had to figure out, or still have to figure out, how to use something like Microsoft Teams on their own. Thomy, reality and mindset.
Yep. And very interesting point came up in discussion we both have had for the last weeks. When you think of Microsoft Teams and when you talk to teachers and they are totally new to the tool, it's absolutely understandable that they start asking questions like, okay, when do I create a team? When do I create a channel? When do I create a private channel? All those questions we are used from people from the industry asking us those questions. With the education tenant in Teams, you get certain features that are targeted for a classroom situation. And when you think of it, are you creating a team for a class for the whole year? And every teacher has a channel in there, or are you creating a team as a class for a teacher? And we realized that Microsoft Teams, of course, is built up with an US schooling structure mindset, because the people, the engineers behind the product think of schools, how they experienced it. And it's a little bit different how school system works in the US and how school system in Austria or in Germany works. Think of all those high school movies where you see that kids go from class to class. I used to sit in the class and the teacher came in and go out. So the history teacher was in the third hour, and the fifth hour was a different teacher in our class. We never moved. That's totally different. And that's something you need to think of when you think of, okay, how to structure teams in a way. And that was some mindset work, at least for the teachers in our nearer in our near area, to realize that they need to adopt a little bit to the tool so they can make use of the built-in functionality way easier. Next big reality check was that teachers are parents too. What does this mean? If you think of a teacher in this totally new situation, he or she takes care of the students during the daytime, and then in the afternoon or in the evening, she or he is also a parent and has kids at home. So the situation doubled over for them, basically, with everything is new on two fronts. And also for parents, you may work at home from the home office, and you're also now a teacher for your kid. So total new situations and different ways of handling those things. And especially at the beginning, where everyone had good intentions and wanted, or at least in my experience, teachers were so overwhelmed with the situation that they created a lot of homework, a lot of stress, and a lot of work that was never doable in set time. So everyone had good intentions, but it was just too much. So less is more also here. And then one big thing, I think that everyone in this call is in the category of being privileged in terms of how we have our IT equipment and everything around us. That's not true for all students. So there's a diverse student body existing, and not everyone has the tools you need so easily available for e-learning. And from the mindset, especially in the education industry or sector, we have always done it that way is probably really true, because when you think of how a class is structured today and 50 years ago, there's not really a lot of difference in how education happens. Of course, the tools changed somehow, but the overall mindset is always the same now. And that this changes as well with everything e-learning, because the kids probably already are more familiar with Teams, especially on the mobile, than the teacher is. So that's also a new thing. And also the mindset in terms of teaching versus learning. So those are the challenges everyone is facing. What about the opportunities we are seeing, Antje?
Yeah, of course, where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And the first topic here for us is the technology. So what I found, and I am supporting 3 schools in the Munich area through the initiative Teams macht Schule, Teams make schools, which came together about 2.5 months ago. And I found that at the beginning, and I noticed that with my own kids, when it became clear that the kids could not return to school on Monday, everything came to a standstill. My younger daughter actually came home with a homework package that lasted for 2-3 weeks, or could have lasted for 2-3 weeks, and my older daughter came home with all her school books, but not more than that. So after the standstill, I noticed that teachers actually went to the different technologies that they knew. One of the big ones was WhatsApp. So my older daughter immediately was added into WhatsApp group by her teacher. Teacher figured out, well, the kids use it anyway, right? So the teacher then actually started giving homework in the morning through the WhatsApp group. No voice, really just putting it in there, posting it. The kids were able to do it, and in the evening they had to turn it in again through WhatsApp. I imagine a teacher getting tons of homework through WhatsApp within a group. I mean, to me, this is just a nightmare, right? Some teachers emailed it out. Some teachers, believe it or not, were still sending it by mail. I also heard a story from a good friend of mine that the school put a drop basket in front of the school where the kids were putting their physical homework in. I mean, think about this for a second. I mean, this is like the antithesis of digital. I mean, I can't even say it any other way. But anyway, this is all they had. Well, then Microsoft Teams came around for some of them, so they heard about it. Some teachers and some schools actually just set up their own test tenant because it's available for free now for a certain amount of time. And while teachers really had teaching on the forefront of their mind, they started to realize that the first thing they really had to do is connect with each other and actually learn how teams worked. And some of the strategies I actually saw from the schools was that they set up a playground, so a team as a playground where the teachers could try it out. Then they set up as a team a teachers lounge where they could start collaborating with each other. And I did actually hear from my own daughter's teacher that she said, oh my God, I mean, we are sitting at home partially we have to be in the school even if the kids are not there. And now all of a sudden have the ability to share content through a teachers lounge in Teams and actually being able to talk to each other, mind you, from their own private devices. That was almost a lifesaver. So it was really then from once the technology was somehow figured out, it went to connect and learn amongst themselves, not students yet. Next came the students.
Yep. And for students and for, I think for everyone in this process, when you think of your own experience, think of your first school day after summer break, or your first school day after Christmas break, or whatever holiday season you have. On the first day, you're not starting immediately with work again. The first day is always something like settling back in a situation. With the pandemic going on, there is a lot of fear, doubt, uncertainty out there, especially with kids, because they're used to structure and everything is different now. So the first thing that teachers needed to do was getting back in connecting with their students, having this idea of a social construct in the classroom, a social group back alive. So everybody shares what happens, everybody shares their fears or their ideas, just talking and not having the first online meeting and going about teaching. That came second. The first thing is really like more getting back to the social group working, or just think of your sports team and there is a season break. If you go back to the first training, it's not the same team that you left 8 weeks before. It takes some time to get used to each other again, and especially in a situation where everything around you, with the whole media and every expert, there's no clear best practice to handle the pandemic. It's more like, okay, we have an idea that creates a lot of uncertainty and a lot of doubt and different opinions. So everybody needs to focus on how to give some structure to move forward, and then start about thinking how we can teach in that situation, how we can make use of e-learning technologies like Microsoft Teams. That was the second step for at least the teachers in our circles, because it's the second thing, because you need to have the contact with your students first and then think about teaching again. But when we think of the opportunities, how we can leverage those times and how we can really make use of everything that is in there in Microsoft 65, I think the time is now, right, Antje?
It's definitely now, and I mean we said in our header of the session, is it just an emergency plan or is it a chance at digital transformation? I think there are three facts that are coming together during this time right now that we did not have before. Well, first off, the technology is available, and the reality is there are actually school districts that have had Microsoft Teams for Education licenses for quite some time and just haven't rolled it out yet because they didn't have a need, right? I mean, everything works the way we always used to do it. Why would we change, right? But now all of a sudden Corona came onto the scene, and the reality is Corona has no roadmap. I mean, we really don't know how soon our kids can go back to school fully. It's different from state to state and country to country. And if we do have another infection rate, if the infection rate starts to go up again, I wouldn't be surprised if schools had to change their game plan again and said, well, now we have to restrict the kids coming to school again. And the third one really is there is no best practice for it. I mean, we've done some scenarios on how to deal with a pandemic, but I'm not sure if schooling was actually part of that. And if it was, I'm not sure if it actually ended up in the school. So we don't have a best practice. And when we were preparing this, what came to our mind, of course, the Microsoft vision, right, which is very interesting because we just decided to change 2 words, didn't we?
Yep. Empower every person and every organization to plan and achieve more. The vision and mission statement from Microsoft since a couple of years just changed 2 words, person to student and achieve to learn, and you are totally focused with everything you have in making the education sector more digital and in our mind better. But on the other side, if you look on the gentleman on the right hand side, I think a quote that everyone also is familiar with, and going back a couple of minutes when Antje talked about a dear friend of ours that posted on Facebook that he needs to hand in paperwork in baskets in front of a school in a schoolyard. If you talk with teachers, and there of course are different types of teachers you face, but those that are like, okay, let's use technology for e-learning, sometimes you have the feeling that they think of using drones, for example, to pick up the paperwork assignment at the kids' place and bring it to school, because that's what they're used to having the paper. And there is just the discussion of how we can get the paper faster back and forth. So same like the great Henry Ford with his quote, like, okay, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So that we need to change the mindset, and we need to show the new capabilities and possibilities with e-learning, and not only make that faster or faster or quicker what we already have. So in terms of first steps, we came up with quite a few ideas. Some of them are already out there in the field, and we have people using it. But Antje, in terms of teacher-student relationship, what is the first thing that we see?
Well, the first thing that we saw, and I saw actually personally with my younger daughter, is the very first classroom video conference the teacher really just took to check in on the kids. How have you been doing? How is it going with the siblings? I mean, we were under quarantine here for a while, so that means that we were actually not allowed to leave the house unless we would go for a walk with family. Well, you know how kids are. Kids want to connect with each other. So going for my daughter going for a walk with me for the umpteenth time, at some point when I said, let's go, I just got an eye roll, a teenage eye roll. Yeah, so after that, he actually moved into recurring classroom video conferences. So now they're actually meeting up on a regular basis, and now it's become more structured after this first initial social contact. So there is now a virtual schoolyard as well, where the kids can really connect with each other, where the teacher is not necessarily around. So it's really modeled after the real life, where they have a break in between the lessons and they can just hang out and run around outside. And another possibility here at Digital Transformation is a virtual PE class, a physical education class. So if my gym can make videos available to me that I can watch on demand to get my workout in at home, why not have a PE teacher actually teach the PE class through the system? I mean, kids usually do have a little bit of space, and hey, if they use their cell phone, right, their smartphone, they still would get the PE, and then the teacher again has a way to connect with them. So from there, the reestablishing the social contact, then of course the next big step for the teachers is to start to teach again. And while Microsoft Teams for Education has a really cool class notebook that has a separate section for each student where only the student and the teacher have access to, I mean, we have to start thinking about making it a little bit more interactive. So one of the ideas could be maybe instead of just uploading a video, teacher uploading a video to discover nature, how about if the teacher actually asks the kids, well, next time when you go on a walk with your mom, why don't you find a specific flower, take a snap, edit it with whatever app you have on your phone, upload it, and then share it. And next time during the next class lesson, we discuss it. So it's just a different way of not just telling the kid at home, look up a book, do this, but really engaging the kid as well. So the kid gets moving and gets outside and possibly also starts talking to the neighbor kid across the fence saying, hey, what did you find? This is what I found. Then, of course, delivering lessons. While I found that the video conference is really great for the teachers, I've also had some teachers tell me, well, we would really like to deliver lessons that the kids can actually consume on their own time. And here, a good idea is to record video. I mean, the teacher has the same possibility that the kids have. Edit it, enhance it with whatever apps you have, upload it, share it, and then teach it, pick it up during the next lesson, and then reference back to it. So this is just from the starting to teach again way of doing it. I think now on the teacher, no, I'm sorry, we're on the right side. Teacher,
Yep.
that's the next step, right?
Yep. The relationships we try to get through with this slide is that we have a teacher-student relationship, but we also have a teacher-teacher relationship. So the school is a workplace. Teachers go there for work. So there are peers, there are colleagues, and we tend to focus only on, okay, how can we make the classroom work again, but we also need to think of the teacher-teacher relationship. It's also a social group, and for them, basically, that the same rules apply that probably everyone in this session had over the last months. Digital lunch break, for example, just to stay in contact and check in with each other. Have these water cooler conversations online. That you can get a feeling again for your peer, for your colleague. And then, of course, using Teams and the whole meeting workload for having school team meetings. Why not just meet up in Teams and have that 1 hour meeting that used to be in a room with 3 or 4 teachers together? Why not have that online in Teams? You can also just interact with each other in Teams as a teacher. And then if you think about the next opportunity is that until now, the school was a very closed system in terms of, okay, you're talking with the teacher in your school, but why not reach out to the, I don't know, history teacher from the next district, talk about, okay, what are you doing in your field? We're working in the same field. How are you handling situations? So with online meeting, if you know that those peers in different districts in different school areas have the same challenges, why don't ask you them about how they're managing the crisis? And from that point on, we are also thinking of, okay, how can we get the parents more into the loop? If you think of it, I just talked about it yesterday with a couple of friends that are in the education business. They hand out paper to be delivered to the parents, and they gave it to like 5 or 4-year-old kids in kindergarten, and put the paper assignment, the information they want to give to the parents in the lunchbox of the kid, so that at home, when the mother opens the lunchbox again to clean it, she sees the paper and then it's, okay, that's a message from the kindergarten teacher.
That's actually a great idea.
It's a great idea, but it's like the weakest point is the messenger in that process. And a 4 or 5-year-old is not legally allowed to buy a car, but he or she needs to hand over information in that way. It's a little bit silly. And we joked yesterday, even fax would be more modern like this. But different approach.
Hey,
but
Thomy,
why don't,
we're talking about digital transformation.
Yeah,
You
that's true.
can't use
That's
storage
true.
facts.
But why don't you have a virtual conference as a kindergarten teacher or a teacher for older kids? Think of the possibilities to reserve time slots. As a parent, you might fill out a Microsoft Forms form to give input or to give feedback in terms of a survey. And not only in those meetings that happen every 6 months, or at least in our school system where there's big conferences with the parents happen, why not have recurrent consultation hours where you can check in and say, okay, with this homework assignment, I have 2 more questions. Maybe there are 3 other parents that have the same questions. So just make use of also the meeting workload in Teams in that regards. But with all those different options, one thing that we want to make very, very clear is we both believe that there's a lot of autonomy in how education happens, and it makes no sense to make one best practice and every school from north to south and west to east is doing the same thing. So all roads lead to Rome. As long as you get there, everything is good, but it of course depends on your situation,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely, and I can tell I'm working with a few first and second grade teachers. There are 4 or 5 teachers, and I do notice that even though they're at the same school, they're teaching the same stuff. They have their own way of doing things, their own processes, their own routines, and so it really depends. And one can really not forget that. But so our chance at digital transformation. I mean, we would like to still communicate a few things. First things first, if you start supporting a local school or maybe the school of your own kids, make sure that you get to know your audiences first, right? Understand how the school administrator ticks. Is it a person that manages fairly openly? Is it a micromanager? How do the teachers work together? How established are they? What type of kids do you have at the school? Do you maybe have kids of migration background where maybe language is a challenge, or also devices or technology is a challenge? So make sure that you get to know your audiences so you know who you're dealing with and who you're trying to help in the situation. Also understand, especially the teachers, understand their daily routine. As I just said, I mean, 4 first grade teachers might have similar daily routines, but there's certain little things that are really different. And if we're now trying to bring them into the online world with Microsoft Teams and even give them a chance at digital transformation, one has to consider the individuality of those teachers. And I do think there is a lot of opportunity because of the technology. And then the next one is, as always, Thomy, I mean, this is coming right from our regular work with companies, the Building Champions Knowledge Community, right?
Yep. The whole idea of key users, trainers, e-buddies, call them what you want, but you need those champions in terms of adoption. Those go-to persons, those in our world, those people in the department that everyone asks, okay, how do I this and that in Excel? Same is true for teachers. There is always this one tech guy or this one tech girl you go to and ask, okay, how do I do that? How do I move my task forward in Teams? Make sure that those are aligned with the idea how you want to roll out Teams in the school. And then what's very important for us is also most of us in this session probably have a strong IT background. And maybe some of you think, no, I'm not a developer, I'm not that technical person. Compared to a teacher, you probably are. Compared to the regular guy, regular Joe out there, you are an IT person. So what works for you very fast and what you already know about IT and how those things work, don't think that the teacher of your kids has the same level of IT experience. So if you talk to them, think of it that you are in a privileged situation having all those IT experienced years in your pocket, and don't assume that they are on the same level and you can ask or demand the same things that you do with your workplace, for example. And also another very important step is that probably it's a good time to educate our kids on responsible use of digital media. Things like fact checking, things like cyberbullying, all those things are super important. And with introducing e-learning at a younger age, it's not about handling Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp in a correct way. It's also about handling Teams and Teams messaging and video share and picture share. So there's a big opportunity and a big chance to also educate our kids, because they are the only future, and we need to have them responsible for digital media. Okay. Our key takeaways.
Yep, to wrap up the
Antje.
session. First takeaway, as always, as it used to be also with SharePoint, dream big, go for the gold, but start small. Is that my turn? The next one, give courage, but give courage to the teachers not to be afraid. This is a very overwhelming time for them, so let them know that it's okay and they don't have to be scared.
And then a very, very important one, be mindful, be kind, be supportive, think of the situations others are facing, don't snap at first chance, be respectful. And then one that is also very, very important for us too.
Being patient is also an activity. So it is okay, be patient with yourself as you're supporting maybe your kids' schools, be patient with the teachers and administrators as well as the kids and the parents. These are very, very unusual times, and patience is key.
And with that, we don't want to take time away from your next break. So thank you very much for your attention.
And if you have any questions, you know where to find us on Twitter, and we'll hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.